Tensura X Villainess by Rimu-chi. Humilia's Pav. A day had passed since the chaotic class that left the academy shaken. Now, I found myself in my room, nervously preparing for my trip to the capital for an audience with the king himself. Rimu-san was coming with me today. I could only hope we would travel together. The thought of doing this alone made my nerves worse. He had insisted that I didn't need to apologize, but I'd already made up my mind. I had to take responsibility for my actions. My lady, are you sure you'll be fine? Lysandra asked, her tone laced with concern. Yeah, I'm fine, don't worry, I assured her, trying to sound confident. But my lady, she persisted, are you certain I don't need to accompany you? I sighed softly, I'll be alright. You know no one can hurt me. I'm level 99, after all. Her concern didn't waver, but she reluctantly nodded. Of course, there was one person who could harm me, Rimu-san. But I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that he would never do such a thing. But what about Rimuru Tempest? Lysandra asked hesitantly, her worry peeking through. I shook my head, smiling slightly. He would never harm me. You don't need to worry about him. As you wish, my lady, she said, bowing slightly, though I could still sense her unease. After getting ready, Lysandra and I made our way to the academy gates, where our carriage awaited. It was a simple cart with 2 sturdy horses, ready for the long journey ahead. When we arrived, Rimu-san wasn't there yet, so we had to wait. My lady, I suggest you board the cart and rest until they arrive, Lysandra advised, gesturing toward the carriage. I nodded, deciding there was no harm in listening to her. Fine, then. I climbed into the cart, settling by the window. The journey to the capital would take a full day, if I remembered correctly. It was strange. Despite knowing the capital well from the game before my reincarnation, this would be my first time seeing it in real life. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of excitement amidst the nervousness. What would it be like? Would it live up to the grand image in my memories? For now, all I could do was wait for Rimu-san. Rimuru's Pav. I was preparing to head to the capital to meet the king with Yumachan. It felt a bit odd in a way. After all, I was a king myself in my world. No, not just a king. I was something far beyond that. Protecting an entire world went beyond the responsibilities of any ruler. If anything, I might as well be the true sovereign of my world. As I was lost in thought, a familiar voice interrupted me. Rimuru-sama, if I may, Serafina said, stepping closer to me. I glanced at her and nodded. Go ahead. What is it? Do you mind if I come with you? She asked, stepping so close that her face was only inches from mine. Her sudden proximity caught me off guard. Sir Serafina, I stammered, feeling my heart race in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. Please, master, she whispered, her voice soft and alluring. Ciel's voice echoed in my mind. Master, I suggest allowing her to come along. Closing square bracket. I frowned internally. Why? If not, I predict you'll have to endure extreme situations. Closing square bracket. What kind of situations? You'll see. Closing square bracket. Master, please, Serafina said again, this time wrapping her arms around me in a gentle embrace. Her voice was practically dripping with seduction. Let me come with you. How was I supposed to say no to her when she asked like that? Ciel's voice returned. I warned you, master. Closing square bracket. Yeah, I get it, I muttered under my breath. With a resigned sigh, I nodded. Fine. You can come with us. Serafina's smile in response sent a shiver down my spine. It was a smile that reminded me of someone. Ciel, perhaps. No, Luminous. Why her? I couldn't figure it out myself. Before we left, Serafina insisted on helping me get dressed. Allow me, master, she said sweetly, stepping behind me and gently sliding the overcoat over my shoulders. I can manage, you know, I protested lightly, but she ignored me. Her fingers brushed against my neck as she adjusted the collar, sending an involuntary shiver through me. This suits you so well, she murmured, leaning closer so her breath tickled my ear. I want you to look perfect for today. I tried to resist the strange tension in the air, but it was futile. Her hands moved with a deliberate slowness, adjusting my attire in ways that seemed far more intimate than necessary. Serafina, I said, my voice strained. Shish, she hushed me softly, stepping around to face me. Her hands smoothed down the front of my shirt, and her eyes locked onto mine. You're so handsome, Rimuru-sama. It's almost unfair. I swallowed hard. Thanks. Before I could step back, she placed her hands on my shoulders and gently pushed me onto the bed. Serafina, I exclaimed, but she only smiled, climbing onto the bed with a grace that left me speechless. Relax, master, she whispered, leaning down until her face was only inches from mine. You've been so tense lately. Let me take care of you. Her lips brushed against mine in a soft, lingering kiss, and I felt my mind go blank. Her warmth, her scent, her touch, it was overwhelming. Serafina, I trailed off, my voice barely audible. She pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, her smile both playful and affectionate. You'll thank me later. After what felt like an eternity of trying, and failing, to resist her advances, we finally left for the academy gates. I felt like I was about to explode after everything that had happened. Meanwhile, Serafina was practically glowing with energy. She hummed softly to herself, her steps light and cheerful. I sighed inwardly. Seal warned me, and I still walked right into it. When Serafina and I arrived at the academy gate, I saw Yumichan's maid, Lysandra, standing outside the carriage. As we approached, she bowed respectfully to us. Good morning, Rimuru-san. What took you so long? Yumichan greeted me from the carriage window, her tone curious but polite. I smiled, trying to appear calm. Good morning, Yumichan. I faced some extreme situations. Sorry for the delay. What kind of situation? She asked, tilting her head slightly in curiosity. I froze. How do I even explain this? Oh, nothing much, just my maid seducing me and practically stealing my soul. Yeah, no, that's not happening. Taking a deep breath, I forced a smile. It's nothing important. Behind me, I heard Serafina giggle softly, which only made my situation worse. Master, I warned you, but you still walked right into her trap. Ciel's voice chimed in, sounding far too smug for my liking. How was I supposed to know she'd seduce me like that? I retorted mentally. You're the one who created her, Ciel. You should have done something. Why would I? I wanted to see if she could succeed. And she did. Closing square bracket. I sighed deeply and climbed into the carriage. Serafina followed close behind and, to my dismay, sat down right next to Yumichan. Are you coming with us, Serafina? Yumichan asked, glancing at her curiously. Serafina smiled sweetly and nodded. Yes, Master personally requested that I join him, so I couldn't possibly refuse. I almost choked. What? That's not what happened. Hey. Ciel's smug tone echoed in my mind, and I could practically see her imaginary grin. Yumichan looked at me with suspicion. Her eyes narrowed slightly. As that's so? She asked, her tone soft but probing. Are you sure nothing happened between you two, Serafina? I felt my face heat up as I turned my head to look out the window. Of course not, I mumbled, trying to keep my voice steady. Serafina, however, leaned closer to Yumichan and smiled mischievously. Oh, something did happen, she said in a teasing tone. Something very special. For a brief moment, I felt a dark aura radiating from Yumichan. I didn't dare turn to face them. What might that be? Yumichan asked, her tone a little too calm. Serafina's smile widened. That's a secret, my lady, she said, her voice playful. I swear, that smile of hers, Ciel must have poured Luminous's personality and her own mischievous nature into Serafina's design. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Well, my life is complicated, I muttered under my breath. Finally, the carriage began to move. The cool morning breeze gushed through the window, ruffling my hair. For a brief moment, I felt relaxed. At least the wind didn't tease or torment me like certain people. I closed my eyes and let the calmness of the journey soothe my nerves, knowing full well this peace wouldn't last long. Humilia's Pav. The morning was calm, with a gentle breeze brushing against my face as I sat in the carriage. Lysandra stood outside, keeping an eye on everything with her usual stoic expression. My mind was still a little restless from the disaster of the previous day, but I pushed those thoughts aside. Today, we were heading to the capital, and I needed to stay focused. Then I spotted Rimu-san approaching the gate with his maid, Serafina, by his side. Lysandra bowed to them politely as they reached us, and I leaned out of the carriage window, smiling. Good morning, Rimu-san. What took you so long? I asked, trying to sound casual, though I was genuinely curious. He smiled back, though I noticed he looked slightly flustered. Ah, good morning, Yuma-chan. I faced some extreme situations. Sorry for the delay. I raised an eyebrow. What kind of situation? His smile faltered for a moment, and he seemed to freeze. His gaze darted to the side, almost like he was nervous. What's going on? After what felt like an eternity, he took a deep breath and forced a smile. It's nothing important, he said. Behind him, I heard Serafina giggle softly, and it immediately set off warning bells in my head. There was something odd about her smile, something smug. I narrowed my eyes slightly, but before I could press further, Rimu-san climbed into the carriage. Serafina followed and, to my surprise, sat down beside me. Are you coming with us, Serafina? I asked, turning to her. She nodded with a serene smile. Yes, Master personally requested that I join him, so I couldn't possibly refuse. I blinked, caught off guard. That doesn't sound like Rimu-san at all. I glanced at him. He looked like he was on the verge of panic, his face slightly flushed as he avoided my gaze. Suspicious, I leaned forward slightly. Is that so? I asked, my voice calm. Are you sure nothing happened between you two, Serafina? Rimu-san turned his head to the window so fast I thought he might hurt his neck. Of course not, he stammered. My suspicion deepened, but before I could question him further, Serafina leaned closer to me with a mischievous smile. Oh, something did happen, she said, her tone playful. Something very special. A dark aura began to bubble inside me, but I kept my composure. What might that be? I asked, keeping my tone light, though my eyes sharpened. Serafina's smile widened, and she tilted her head slightly. That's a secret, my lady, she said with a teasing lilt in her voice. I clenched my hands in my lap, trying to maintain my calm. What is with this woman? Rimu-san sighed heavily and muttered, well, my life is complicated. I watched him closely as the carriage began to move, the breeze flowing in through the window. He looked relieved, almost like he was trying to escape from something. As the journey continued, I kept an eye on Serafina. Her demeanor was calm, yet there was something playful in her every move. I didn't know what had happened before they arrived, but one thing was clear, this maid was dangerous in her own way. I'll have to keep an eye on her. Seraphinas POV. The carriage rolled steadily onward, the rhythmic clatter of wheels on the road mingling with the awkward tension inside. I glanced at Master. No, Rimuru. He sat stiffly by the window, staring at the scenery as though it held the answers to some profound mystery. Poor Rimuru. He looked as if he wanted to leap out of the moving carriage to escape. A sly smile tugged at my lips. It wasn't every day I got to see him squirm like this, and I wasn't about to let the moment pass unappreciated. He was always so calm and composed, his brilliant mind outmaneuvering everyone around him. But now, thanks to me, he looked like a cornered rabbit. Serves you right, Master. If you want to play the oblivious hero surrounded by admirers, then you should be prepared for the consequences. Beside me, Lady Yumilia finally spoke, cutting through the thick silence. Serafina, she said, her tone measured, yet her curiosity was unmistakable. I've been meaning to ask you about that mark on Rimu-san's neck. Ah, the mark. My golden eyes flickered toward Rimuru's neck with satisfaction. The little bite mark stood out faintly against his pale skin. A memory of my mischief, a perfect excuse for my story. Rimuru froze at Yumilia's words, his shoulders tensing as if he'd been struck. He turned toward her, panic written all over his face. Oh, how adorable. He looked like he'd been caught red-handed, even though I was about to make up every single detail of what happened. I leaned back in my seat, letting out a soft, contented sigh. The air in the carriage was charged, the tension almost palpable. Poor Yumilia. Her wide eyes betrayed her growing suspicion, and I could see her struggling to keep her composure. But Rimuru, Oh, Rimuru, he was the highlight of this entire performance. He sat stiffly by the window, shoulders rigid, face buried in his hands as though hiding from the weight of my words. I couldn't help the smile that tugged at my lips. Watching him squirm was deliciously satisfying, even if I had to embellish the truth. If he wouldn't claim me willingly, I'd ensure that no one else could have him. After all, what better way to protect what was mine than by planting the idea in everyone's mind that he already belonged to me? I adjusted my position slightly, resting one arm casually on the carriage's armrest. It was a quiet night, I began, my voice soft and lilting, as though I were telling a bedtime story. I'd just finished my evening routine, brushing my hair, slipping into something comfortable, and I was about to settle into bed. The room was dimly lit, the faint glow of moonlight spilling through the curtains. It felt serene. I glanced at Yumilia, ensuring she was hooked. She was leaning forward now, her arms crossed tightly over her chest as though bracing herself for what was to come. Good. Let her hang on every word. But then, I continued, my tone shifting slightly, the peace was broken. I felt it before I saw him, a presence. Heavy, commanding, and utterly irresistible. I let my lips curl into a soft, knowing smile. At first, I thought I was imagining things. But then, the door creaked ever so slightly. I let the words hang in the air, savoring the way Yumilia's eyes widened and how Rimuru's fingers tightened against his temples. Perfect. I turned toward the door, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. And there he was, Master, standing there in the doorway, the moonlight framing him like some forbidden dream. But there was something different about him. His eyes, they weren't the same as usual. There was this darkness in them, this hunger that sent shivers down my spine. I made sure my cheeks flushed faintly, tilting my head as if recalling the moment in vivid detail. I asked him what he was doing there, I murmured, but he didn't answer. He just stepped inside, closing the door behind him with such deliberate slowness that it made my heart race. Yumilia gasped softly, her curiosity burning brighter. I fought back the urge to laugh. Hook, line, and sinker. I was frozen, I admitted, letting my voice quaver ever so slightly for effect. He started walking toward me, each step deliberate, almost predatory. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. All I could do was watch as he came closer and closer, until he was standing right beside my bed. I paused for dramatic effect, watching Yumilia's lips part in disbelief. Oh, this was too easy. And then, she prompted, her voice barely above a whisper. I let out a soft, breathy laugh, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. He reached out, I said, my voice dripping with a mixture of innocence and seduction, and touched my cheek. His fingers were so warm, so gentle, but there was this tension in his touch, as though he was holding himself back. My eyes fluttered closed for a moment as I let the memory I was weaving take shape in my mind. I asked him again what he was doing there, I continued, but he just looked at me, his eyes so full of longing. He didn't say a word. Instead, he leaned down, his lips brushing against mine so lightly that I barely felt it at first. Yumilia inhaled sharply, her cheeks flushing faintly. I smiled inwardly, pleased with the reaction. But then, I said, my voice growing softer, more intimate, he kissed me, properly this time. It wasn't just a kiss, though. It was desperate, hungry, as if he'd been holding himself back for so long that he couldn't take it anymore. I placed a hand lightly over my heart, as though to steady it. It was overwhelming, I whispered. The way he held me, the way his lips moved against mine, I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. All I could do was feel. I glanced at Rimuru, who was now utterly motionless, his face hidden behind his hands. Oh, how I loved seeing him like this, completely out of his depth, unable to refute a single word. His silence only made my story all the more believable. I tried to push him away, I said, lowering my gaze as though ashamed. I told him he shouldn't be there, that it wasn't right. But he wouldn't listen. He just looked at me with those eyes, so full of desperation, and said, I hesitated, my cheeks flushing deeper as I pretended to relive the moment. He said, I've wanted you for so long, Serafina. I can't hold back anymore. Yumilia's hands clenched into fists, and I could practically see the conflict swirling in her eyes. I continued, my voice growing softer, almost wistful. And then, he started to undo my nightgown. Her eyes widened. He what? He was so gentle, I murmured, letting my fingers trail idly along the fabric of my dress. But there was this determination in his movements, as though he couldn't stop even if he wanted to. I panicked, of course. I tried to tell him to stop, but my words didn't seem to reach him. I hesitated for a moment, allowing a small, shy smile to grace my lips. So I bit him, I said simply. Hard. The mark, Yumilia breathed, understanding dawning on her face. I nodded, my smile growing sly. I thought it would make him stop, and for a moment, it did. He pulled back, looking surprised. But then, I let out a soft laugh, my golden eyes sparkling with mischief. He smiled at me. He smiled. Yumilia echoed, her tone disbelieving. Yes, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. He said it was perfect. That the mark would show everyone I belonged to him. And then, I trailed off, my cheeks flushing deeply as I let my fingers brush against my lips. He kissed me again. And this time, I didn't try to stop him. I paused, letting the words hang in the air as Yumilia stared at me in stunned silence. The rest of the night, I said softly, was unforgettable. The way he held me, the way he whispered things to me, it was like he was baring his soul. I've never felt so cherished, so wanted. I glanced at Rimuru one last time, my smile widening as I saw him remain frozen in place, utterly silent. Lady Yumilia, I said sweetly, even Master can't deny it. Can you, Master? He didn't answer, of course. His silence was deafening. And that was exactly how I wanted it. Yumilia's pav. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. Serafina's story had struck me harder than I cared to admit. She claimed Rimu-san had stolen her first kiss, seduced her, and even spent the night with her. It painted such a vivid picture, one that I couldn't reconcile with the man sitting across from me. Rimu-san, is this really the kind of person you are? He was silent, completely still, and that silence made her story feel even more real. If it wasn't true, wouldn't he have denied it by now? The thought gnawed at me, making my chest feel uncomfortably tight. But at the same time, something felt off. Serafina's story was almost too perfect, too dramatic, as though she had rehearsed every word. It felt like she was trying to provoke me, trying to test me. But why? Was it possible that she loved Rimu-san and was trying to stake her claim? I don't know. When I reincarnated into this world, one that mirrored the Otone game I used to play, I thought my main focus would be surviving. I had no intention of getting involved in romance, let alone with someone like Rimu-san. Yet now, here I was, unable to focus on anything else. I sighed and turned toward him. Rimu-san, can you say something? For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, finally, he sighed, lowering his hands from his face. He glanced at me, then at Serafina, before leaning back and speaking. Well, I have one thing to say, he said, his tone neutral but carrying a hint of exasperation. I blinked, leaning forward slightly. What is it? He turned to look out the window, his expression unreadable. If I really did all that to Serafina, he said calmly, I can assure you she'd either be pregnant or unable to walk right now. The air in the carriage went still. My cheeks burned as his words sank in, and I stared at him in disbelief. What is that supposed to mean? I stammered. He sighed again, rubbing his temples. It means, he said, his voice tinged with irritation, that Serafina is trying to make my life more complicated. A soft laugh escaped Serafina, light and teasing. You could say that, she said, a sly smile playing on her lips. But you can't deny our night wasn't enjoyable. Rimuru glanced at her, his expression shifting to one of mild annoyance. I enjoyed the night, he admitted, his tone dry. But, not in the way you described. I frowned, my confusion growing. What do you mean? I asked, my voice hesitant. Serafina giggled, covering her mouth with one delicate hand. Oh, Lady Yumilia, you're so pure, she teased. Don't overthink it. Basically, Rimuru said, his face reddening as he rubbed the back of his neck, I didn't do anything. Serafina made all of that up. His admission left me stunned. I glanced at Serafina, who seemed utterly delighted by the chaos she had caused, her golden eyes sparkling with amusement. I let out a soft breath. I see, I murmured. So Serafina made that story up. Come on, Master, Serafina drawled playfully. You can't just Fine, Rimuru interrupted, cutting her off with a firm tone. Not now. Near future. I blinked, surprised by his words. Near future. I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper. What does he mean by that? I sighed, shaking my head as I tried to make sense of everything. When I looked at Serafina again, she was positively glowing with satisfaction. These two are impossible, I thought to myself, my lips pressing into a thin line. For now, I decided, I would let this go. There were too many emotions swirling inside me, too many questions without answers. But one thing was clear, my journey with these two was going to be far more complicated than I had anticipated. Rimuru's pav. I sighed, leaning back in the carriage as I tried to process the absurdity of the situation. Serafina's theatrics had completely blindsided me. The way she spun that fabricated story with such confidence, it was almost as if she believed it herself. Master, are you surprised? Serafina's story is certainly elaborate. Ciel's voice echoed in my mind, her tone laced with barely concealed amusement. I groaned internally, resisting the urge to pinch the bridge of my nose in frustration. Elaborate. That's the understatement of the century, I muttered, keeping my voice low enough to ensure the two women wouldn't hear. But isn't it fascinating? Her creativity is inspired by your history with me. I stiffened slightly, my hand reflexively tightening into a fist. Ciel, I said through gritted teeth, didn't I specifically tell you not to bring that up? Ever. You did, Master. But it's far too amusing for me to resist. Her response dripped with smug satisfaction, and I could almost imagine her wearing that infuriatingly smug expression she used to taunt me. All right, I said after exhaling slowly, then why did you hint to Serafina about the near future? What exactly are you trying to imply? Ciel was silent for a moment, her pause deliberate, almost taunting. You'll understand when the time comes, Master. Until then, patience is key. I let out a heavy sigh, leaning forward slightly as I rested my elbows on my knees. You're enjoying this far more than you should, aren't you? Naturally. Watching you squirm is one of life's greatest joys. You and Serafina make such a delightful duo of chaos. I scowled, though I knew it was a pointless gesture. I swear, I muttered darkly, you and Serafina are conspiring to turn my life into a living nightmare. Why, thank you, Master. That's such a lovely compliment. That wasn't a compliment. Smug face. I groaned aloud this time, pressing a hand to my forehead. There was no winning against Ciel when she was in this mood, and trying would only exhaust me further. Closing my eyes, I decided to tune out the chaos brewing in my mind. Between Ciel's cryptic remarks, Serafina's relentless antics, and Eumalia's unending questions, my patience was rapidly reaching its limits. For now, I decided, it was best to let it all go. The carriage rolled steadily toward our destination, the rhythmic sound of its wheels the only semblance of peace I could cling to. Though I doubted it would last, I allowed myself to hope for even a fleeting moment of quiet before the next storm inevitably arrived. Eumalia's pav. The carriage ride to the capital felt like it would never end. I sat in silence, still processing everything that had happened earlier. Rimu-san and his maid, Serafina, were seated across from me, but my thoughts kept swirling. How did I even believe Serafina's ridiculous story in the first place? Rimu-san had clearly denied it, even making that absurd comment about Serafina being pregnant or unable to walk if it were true. Yet, I couldn't stop thinking about his other words. I enjoyed the night. If nothing had happened, then what did he mean by that? I shook my head, trying to push the thoughts aside. As we neared the capital, I glanced out the window. The city was massive, its towering structures and bustling streets unlike anything I had seen before. Suddenly, Rimu-san's voice broke the silence. So this is the capital of this kingdom, huh? Not gonna lie, it's smaller than I thought. I blinked, turning to him in disbelief. Smaller. How could he think this enormous city was small? Master, Serafina said, her tone slightly scolding, you can't just say things like that because it doesn't meet your expectations. Yeah, sorry about that, Rimu-san replied, waving her off lazily. Let's just meet this king guy and head to the academy. I'm already bored. I sighed, shaking my head. Rimu-san, I said, exasperation creeping into my voice, I don't understand you at all. He turned to me with a grin. Thanks for the compliment, Yumachan. I frowned. That wasn't a compliment. He chuckled lightly, leaning back in his seat. To me, it is. Even Serafina giggled, covering her mouth with her hand. I sighed again, feeling utterly defeated. I'm not getting anywhere with this, am I? In unison, Rimu-san and Serafina both said, no, you're not. Their synchronized response made me blink in surprise, but before I could react, something strange happened. For a brief moment, I thought I heard another voice, a feminine, almost mechanical voice. It was faint, barely audible, but distinctly different from Rimu-san or Serafina's. I glanced around the carriage, but there was no one else here. Shaking my head, I dismissed it as my imagination. Finally, we reached the castle gates. The massive structure loomed ahead, its grandeur both intimidating and inspiring. As the carriage came to a stop, I took a deep breath. Well, I muttered under my breath, let's see how this audience with the king turns out. Our carriage rolled through the castle gates, its wheels clattering on the cobblestone path as we approached the grand structure ahead. After a few minutes, we came to a halt in front of a massive building that looked like it had been plucked straight from a storybook. The castle was a masterpiece of architecture, its towering spires stretching toward the sky and its white walls gleaming in the sunlight, accented with gold and intricate carvings. The sound of footsteps approached, and a soldier in polished armor opened the carriage door, bowing slightly. Welcome. I am your escort. Please follow me to the audience chamber, he said politely, his tone formal yet welcoming. Rimu-san stepped out first, moving with his usual calm and confident demeanor. Serafina followed, but not before Rimu-san extended his hand to help her down. She took it gracefully, stepping onto the cobblestone with a radiant smile. Then, she turned her gaze to me, her golden eyes sparkling mischievously as she shot me a smug grin. I sighed, already bracing myself for her antics. When it was my turn to step out, Rimu-san offered me his hand as well. I hesitated for a moment before taking it, his touch warm and reassuring. Carefully, I stepped out of the carriage, but the moment my feet hit the ground, Rimu-san's teasing voice reached my ears. Yumachan, you're blushing again, he said, his tone playful. I am not, I retorted, feeling the heat rise to my cheeks as I quickly looked away. He chuckled softly. YAA, you're not. My apologies. I glanced back at him, feeling a mix of embarrassment and annoyance. For some reason, his hand felt incredibly smooth and warm, almost like silk. I quickly shook off the thought and focused on the soldier who was waiting for us. Please follow me, the soldier said, gesturing toward the castle's grand entrance. We nodded and began to walk behind him. As we stepped inside, I couldn't help but be awestruck. The castle's interior was breathtaking. The floors were made of polished marble, shimmering under the light of massive crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Golden accents adorned every pillar, and the walls were decorated with elaborate tapestries depicting heroic battles, legendary rulers, and moments of peace and prosperity. Ornate vases filled with fresh flowers stood at intervals, their fragrance subtly enhancing the already luxurious atmosphere. This place is incredible, I murmured, unable to hide my amazement. It's all right, Rimu-san commented nonchalantly. Smaller than I expected, though. I nearly stumbled at his words. Smaller. Rimu-san, this castle is gigantic. What kind of places are you used to? Serafina giggled, her voice soft and melodic. Master, you really shouldn't say things like that. Not everyone has seen the world the way you have. Rimu-san shrugged. What? I'm just being honest. Anyway, let's meet this king already. I'm getting bored. I sighed, shaking my head. I really don't understand you, Rimu-san. Thanks for the compliment, Yumachan, he replied with a sly grin. That wasn't a compliment, I muttered, narrowing my eyes at him. To me, it is, he said, his grin widening. Even Serafina couldn't help but giggle at his antics. I sighed again, realizing there was no point in arguing with him. I'm not getting anywhere with this, am I? Serafina answered. No, you're not. We continued walking until the soldier led us down a long hallway lined with portraits. Each one depicted a member of the royal family, their faces captured in lifelike detail. The frames were gilded in gold, and the subjects radiated an air of regality. Kings and queens from generations past stared down at us, their expressions a mix of pride and authority. One portrait, however, caught my eye. It depicted a young princess with snow-white hair and striking yellow eyes. Her expression was soft, almost melancholic, and it stood out among the other, more formal portraits. Rimu-san noticed my lingering gaze. Something wrong? He asked, his tone curious. I hesitated before pointing to the painting. I didn't know the king had a daughter. The soldier glanced back at us and nodded. Ah, that would be Princess Ilaria, His Majesty's youngest child. She's just a year younger than the second crown Prince Edwin. Princess Ilaria, I repeated, staring at the portrait. There was something about her that felt different. Rimu-san tilted his head slightly. Interesting. Well, shall we move on? I nodded, though my mind was still fixated on the painting. Yes, let's. The soldier resumed leading us down the hallway, and I tried to shake off the strange feeling that lingered. Everything about this world felt slightly different from what I remembered in the game, and the presence of Rimu-san and Serafina only made it more unpredictable. I sighed, dismissing the thoughts for now. Before long, we reached the grand double doors leading to the audience chamber. My heart pounded, a mix of anticipation and anxiety swirling inside me. Whatever awaited us beyond these doors, it was bound to be anything but ordinary. The soldier stepped forward and opened the massive doors, their creak echoing through the grand hall. He stepped in first, his polished armor catching the golden light of the elaborate chandeliers above. Stopping just inside, he announced in a loud, clear voice. Lord Rimuru Tempest and Lady Yumilia Dolkness have arrived. The room, a sea of nobles adorned in lavish attire, fell silent. For a heartbeat, the air was still, heavy with curiosity and expectation. Then, as though a dam had broken, whispers erupted like a storm, rippling across the room. Did he say Rimuru Tempest? The rumored level 100. Impossible. Level 100 is a myth. No human has ever achieved such strength. And look at him. His presence alone is terrifying. Those golden eyes, that jet black hair, doesn't he resemble the descriptions of the demon lord from the ancient texts? My gaze flickered to Rimu-san. He walked with a calm yet commanding presence, his every step exuding confidence. His golden eyes scanned the room, seemingly amused by the whispers. And Lady Yumilia Dolkness, isn't she the one said to have reached level 99? Such power is unheard of for someone her age. Indeed, and her black hair, it's as dark as the night sky. Doesn't that make her a demon queen? What are the odds that two individuals with such uncanny appearances and reputations would travel together? No wonder the Dolkness family rose in prominence so quickly. They have a prodigy. But Rimuru Tempest, his family is second only to the royal family in power. Do you think they're related? They can't be. The Dolkness family is tied to shadows and secrecy, while the Tempest family is all about dominance and authority. Yet, they look so alike. Maybe it's fate. One noblewoman whispered, her voice tinged with awe. The whispers didn't stop there. As Serafina stepped in behind us, her presence brought another wave of murmurs. That woman, her aura is unsettling. Could she be from the Nove clan? The Nove clan. The ones who serve only the Tempest family. Yes, the very same. I thought they were just a legend, but seeing her, she fits every description. The Nove clan is said to be terrifyingly loyal. Didn't a butler from their clan once kill 1,000 soldiers just because his master's son lost an arm in battle? Such ferocity, and that serene smile of hers is even more unsettling. It's like she's always ready to strike. No wonder the Tempest family is untouchable. With servants like that, they don't need armies. And yet, despite her intimidating aura, she walks behind them as if nothing in the world could faze her. Amidst the chaos of whispers, some nobles began speaking of more practical matters. We should consider aligning with Rimuru Tempest. Imagine the power we could gain by marrying one of our daughters to him. Do you think he'd even entertain such an idea? The Tempest family is leagues above us in influence. They don't need alliances with lesser families like ours. Perhaps, but imagine the benefits. If one of our daughters became Lady Tempest, we'd be untouchable. Fools. Do you think the Tempest family would accept such an offer? They already rival the royal family in power. No amount of dowry or beauty would sway them unless it suited their greater plans. And what of Lady Yumilia? Her power and reputation rival Rimuru's. Do you think they're involved? Impossible. She's from the Dolkness family, not Tempest. Besides, her demeanor is far too humble compared to his commanding presence. I clenched my fists, the weight of their words pressing down on me. It was frustrating to hear myself and Rimu-san reduced to tools for their political games. Rimu-san must have noticed my unease because he leaned slightly toward me and whispered, "Relax, Yuma-chan. Let them talk. It doesn't change anything." His calm, reassuring voice steadied my racing heart. Taking a deep breath, I focused on walking with as much poise as I could muster. As we neared the throne, the whispers shifted. Look at the queen's expression. She seems cautious. Of course she is. Rimuru Tempest's power could easily challenge the royal family if the rumors are true. And with the Nove clan at his side, who knows what he's capable of. And Lady Yumilia, her presence is no less intimidating. Together, they're a force to be reckoned with. Don't forget Serafina. She's practically a legend walking among us. I wonder how many lives she's taken for the Tempest family. Finally, we stopped a few feet from the throne. The soldier bowed deeply and announced, "Your Majesty, Lord Rimuru Tempest and Lady Yumilia Dolkness have come as requested." The king sat on his ornate throne, his presence commanding. Beside him sat the queen, her sharp, calculating gaze fixed on Rimuru-san. There was no warmth in her expression, only the wary regard of someone evaluating a potential threat. But something else caught my attention. Behind the throne, partially obscured in the shadows, I caught a flicker of movement. It was quick, almost too quick to notice, but I was certain I saw a figure hiding there. Whoever, or whatever, it was didn't seem eager to be seen. Rimuru-san's voice broke the silence. "It's an honor to meet your Majesty and your Queen. I hope we haven't kept you waiting." His tone was polite, but there was an underlying sharpness that made me glance at him. The rumors about him being the Demon Lord suddenly didn't seem so far-fetched. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly, but she remained silent. The king, however, smiled faintly and spoke, "The pleasure is ours, Sir Rimuru, Miss Yumilia. Your reputations precede you." "Do they now?" Rimuru-san replied, his tone laced with subtle amusement. The whispers among the nobles surged again. "Did you see that?" He spoke to the king as if they were equals. Not even equals. More like rivals. Does he truly think he could stand on the same level as the royal family? What if he does? If he truly is the Demon Lord, the royal family may not be able to stop him. I bit my lip, glancing at Serafina for reassurance. As always, she looked completely unbothered, her serene smile firmly in place, as if nothing in this grand chamber could disturb her composure. The queen finally broke the tense silence. Her sharp, icy voice carried authority and skepticism. "According to rumors, you've reached level 100. That is a feat impossible for any human to achieve." Rimuru-san tilted his head slightly, a faint teasing smile curling his lips. "You could say that. Yes, it's considered unreachable. How I reached such a level, well, it's still a mystery to me, Your Majesty." His words were casual, yet there was a distinct sharpness to them that made the queen's eyes narrow. Suddenly, a noble with a loud, commanding voice spoke up. He was a large man with a thick mustache and an air of self-importance. I recognized him instantly. Lord Graelvan, the third-ranking noble in the kingdom according to the game. "Your Majesty," Graelvan declared, pointing an accusatory finger. "Look at that woman." He jabbed his finger toward Serafina, who remained unfazed, her serene expression unbroken. She did not bow before the royal family. Such behavior is a disgrace to both the crown and the noble assembly gathered here. The entire room fell silent, and then, as if a dam had burst, the murmurs began. Did he just insult her? Does he not know who she is? I doubt it. The Tempest family isn't widely known to the majority of the kingdom, but insulting them is a death sentence. Forget the Tempest family. That woman is from the Nove clan. He's either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Foolish is putting it mildly. Everyone knows the Nove clan's reputation. They're fiercely loyal to the Tempest family and have more power in a single servant than most armies. Did you hear the story about the butler? Yes. And this Lord Graelvan dares to speak against them. The murmurs grew louder, filling the room with a mixture of shock and awe. He must not know who they are. Well, ignorance is no excuse. He's practically signed his own death warrant. True, But the Tempest family remains an enigma to most of the kingdom. Their isolation might explain why someone as highly ranked as Graelvan would dare to act so boldly. Still, to publicly challenge them, he's a fool. Rimu-chi sighed softly, the sound cutting through the growing noise. With a calm, almost tired tone, he addressed the room. I'm sorry if this has caused a misunderstanding, but Serafina does not need to bow to anyone. The room went completely silent, every noble frozen in shock. Even I couldn't suppress my surprise, my eyes widening as I turned to Rimu-chi. The whispers resumed, louder and more frantic this time. Did you hear that? He said she doesn't need to bow to anyone. Such arrogance. Does he think himself above the royal family? No, this isn't arrogance. This is confidence. And it's terrifying. If Rimuru Tempest says she doesn't need to bow, it must mean she's acting on his authority. Which means the Tempest family considers themselves equals to the royal family. Not just equals. If the rumors about his power are true, they may even see themselves as superior. And he said it so casually. As if it's the most natural thing in the world. Graelvan's face twisted in indignation. Preposterous. No one is above the royal family. He bellowed, his voice echoing through the grand chamber like a clap of thunder. Rimu-chi let out a soft sigh, a sound that somehow felt heavier than Graelvan's roar. Without turning fully, he glanced at Serafina and said in a calm yet authoritative tone, Serafina, explain to him. You have my permission to speak freely. Serafina bowed her head slightly. As you wish, my lord. Then she turned her piercing gaze directly toward Graelvan, her serene smile fading into an expression of icy resolve. Her voice, calm but unwavering, echoed through the room. I am Serafina Nova. As a member of the Nova clan, we do not bow to anyone, noble, king, demon, or god. It does not matter who they are or what title they bear. The Nova clan bows only to our master. In my case, that master is Lord Rimuru Tempest. A heavy silence fell over the room, followed immediately by an eruption of whispers. She truly is from the Nova clan. Her loyalty to the Tempest family is absolute. Did you hear the conviction in her voice? I can't believe it, a maid who openly declares she wouldn't bow to the king himself. That's the Nova clan for you. They've always been this way. Their loyalty isn't just a rumor, it's their creed. They say that in the past, a Nova clan butler wiped out an army of 1,000 because his master's son lost an arm. I didn't believe it until now. To think Rimuru Tempest commands such loyalty, it's terrifying. I don't think Graelvan realizes how lucky he is to still be breathing. If Serafina had wanted to, she could have ended him right here and now. I sighed softly, my thoughts spiraling. Rimu-chi and Serafina, their confidence, their presence, it was unthinkable. I couldn't help but wonder how I was supposed to apologize to the king for what had happened at the academy when they carried themselves like this. Just as I was lost in thought, Graelvan's face turned a furious shade of red. His pride was clearly wounded, and he spat, how dare a mere maid look directly into my eyes? Know your place, you. Before he could finish his sentence, two voices cut him off in perfect unison. Know your place, Graelvan. The words reverberated through the chamber like a hammer striking an anvil. One voice belonged to the king, his tone sharp and authoritative. The other belonged to Rimu-chi, his voice calm but laced with a fury that sent chills down my spine. I froze, my eyes widening as I turned to Rimu-chi. I had never heard him sound like that before. Cold, commanding, and undeniably angry. The air around him seemed to grow heavier, as if the very atmosphere was bending under the weight of his displeasure. The king, too, looked imposing, his gaze fixed firmly on Graelvan. It was clear he shared the same thoughts as Rimu-chi. The queen, on the other hand, giggled softly, her laughter cutting through the tension like a knife. It wasn't mocking, but it held a strange amusement, as if she found the entire situation entertaining. The nobles erupted into murmurs again, their voices a mixture of awe and fear. Did you hear that? Rimuru Tempest and the king said the exact same thing. They're completely in sync. It's as if they're equals in authority. Graelvan deserves this. He dared to insult a Nova clan member and challenge the Tempest family. He's lucky he wasn't struck down where he stood. Rimuru Tempest's anger, it's frightening. I never thought I'd see someone speak like that in the presence of the royal family. The king himself seems to support him. This just proves how powerful the Tempest family truly is. Greylavon should be grateful. If this were anyone else, he'd be dead already. Greylavon stumbled back, his face pale as he realized the gravity of his mistake. His mouth opened and closed as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. Rimu-san finally broke the silence, his voice calm but firm. Let me make this clear. The Nova clan does not follow your rules or your hierarchy. Their loyalty is mine. And she belonged to me and mine alone. Serafina owes no one here an apology. Not you, not the royal family, not anyone. Even God. The room was dead silent, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. Even I couldn't help but be surprised by how boldly he spoke, but I couldn't deny the truth in his words. Rimu-san carried himself with the confidence of someone who knew exactly who he was and what he stood for. The king's expression remained unreadable, but there was a glint of approval in his eyes. Meanwhile, Greylavon, visibly shaken, lowered his head slightly, though it was unclear if it was an act of submission or fear. Behind the throne, I once again caught a glimpse of something, or someone, hidden in the shadows. The sight sent a chill down my spine, but I didn't dare let my unease show. For now, the focus was entirely on Rimu-san and the storm he had unleashed. The king sighed deeply and said, "My apologies for that, Sir Rimuru." His gaze then turned toward me, softening as he continued, "And to you as well, Miss Yumilia. I've heard about what my idiot son Edwin has done. For the trouble he's caused, I am deeply sorry." With that, the king bowed his head, an act so unexpected it left the entire hall in stunned silence. I froze. A king bowing to me. My mind raced, unsure of how to process the moment. I wasn't like Rimu-san or Serafina, who exuded confidence so effortlessly. The weight of everyone's gazes fell on me, making me acutely aware of my every movement. Quickly, I bowed in return. "No, Your Majesty, there's nothing for you to apologize for," I said hurriedly, my voice barely steady. As I straightened up, I noticed Rimu-san watching me with a soft, almost teasing smile. I frowned, feeling self-conscious under his gaze. "What?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. "Why are you smiling at me like that?" Rimuru chuckled lightly, the corners of his mouth quirking up as he turned his head away. "Nothing. Nothing at all," he said with a faintly amused tone. From behind us, Serafina giggled softly, her expression calm but her amusement clear. I sighed inwardly. Why are these two always like this? Around us, the murmurs among the nobles began to grow louder, their whispers carrying throughout the grand chamber. The king apologized. To a Dolkness noble, no less. That girl must be extraordinary for his majesty to lower himself like that. She's no ordinary noble. Look at how composed she is. And what about Rimuru Tempest? Did you see how relaxed he was when the king spoke to him? Relaxed. He looked like he was the one in charge. Could it be? Their connection to the Tempest family makes even the royal family tread carefully. Some nobles glanced at me with curiosity, others with envy, while the rest focused intently on Rimu-san, their fascination with him evident. The queen's voice, light and melodic, cut through the low hum of conversations. "If I may, could I ask something?" Rimu-san and I exchanged a quick glance before nodding politely in unison. "Are you two truly level 99 and level 100? The queen asked, her curiosity plain. "Not to be rude, but you're both so young, so charming. I wouldn't have expected it." The king nodded in agreement, his expression thoughtful. "Yes, it's unheard of. And yet, here you both are." Rimu-san's smile widened slightly, his golden eyes gleaming with amusement. "There are many things in this world that seem impossible, Your Majesty. Some because they are, and others because they're simply beyond comprehension." The queen chuckled softly, her eyes twinkling. "I see. I can't argue with that," she said. Then, turning to me, she asked, "And what about you, young lady? What do you think?" I hesitated for a moment before replying honestly, Rimu-san is impossible to understand most of the time. I've almost given up trying to figure out what he means. This earned a genuine laugh from the queen, and even the king's stern expression softened into a faint smile. "Rimuru has a point," the king said after a moment. "In many ways, we must accept the extraordinary for what it is." Rimu-san gave a slight bow, his smile never faltering. "Why, thank you, Your Majesty. I'm honored by your agreement." I sighed inwardly, my thoughts running wild. Why does this feel more like a casual chat between old friends than a formal discussion between a king and two young nobles? The nobles around us were utterly perplexed, their whispers growing louder with each passing second. Did you hear that? The king is speaking to Rimuru like they're equals. Rimuru isn't just confident, he's commanding. And the girl, Yumilia. She must have more influence than we realize for the king to apologize to her so sincerely. It's almost as if the Tempest family is above even the royal family in some ways. Ridiculous. That's impossible. Is it? Did you see the queen? She's amused. Amused. She knows something we don't. I'm starting to think the Tempest family might be untouchable. The queen broke the murmurs with her soft laughter. Rimuru Tempest, I must admit, you are full of surprises, she said. And your companion here, Miss Yumilia, is every bit as intriguing. I flushed slightly under her gaze, unsure of how to respond. Rimuru-san, however, was unfazed. Thank you, Your Majesty. Though I must say, surprises are part of life's charm, wouldn't you agree? The queen tilted her head, her smile widening. Indeed. And perhaps, they're what make life truly interesting. The king interjected, his tone thoughtful. Sir Rimuru, I've been meaning to ask, how is it that someone so young has achieved so much? Surely it can't all be natural talent. Rimuru-san's expression grew contemplative. It's a mix of things, Your Majesty. Talent, yes, but also determination, opportunity, and perhaps a little luck. A humble answer, the king remarked, his eyes narrowing slightly in appraisal. But I suspect there's more to your story than you're letting on. Rimuru-san chuckled softly, his gaze unyielding. Perhaps. But some mysteries are better left unsolved. The nobles around us were now openly staring, their previous whispers replaced by stunned silence. This feels unreal, I thought, glancing at Rimuru-san. His confidence was absolute, his presence commanding even among royalty. The murmurs began again, softer this time but filled with awe. Did you hear that? Even the king acknowledges Rimuru's achievements. Unbelievable. He truly might be untouchable. And yet, he speaks with such humility. It's unsettling, almost. The Tempest family. How much power do they truly hold? The atmosphere in the hall had shifted entirely, and I realized that Rimuru-san and I were now being viewed in an entirely different light. The king leaned forward slightly, his gaze steady. Even so, there are many who don't know the truth, and some will never believe it until they see it with their own eyes. I nodded, understanding his point. Beside me, Rimuru-san appeared thoughtful for a moment before a playful smile crossed his face. So, Your Majesty, you want to test us, is that it? The room went silent, and a collective gasp spread through the nobles. The king chuckled lightly and said, absolutely. I wish to confirm your levels and show everyone here that what they've heard is indeed true. His eyes scanned the room before returning to us. Would that be all right with the two of you? I met his gaze and replied calmly, I have no complaints, Your Majesty. Rimuru-san's smile widened as he crossed his arms casually. That sounds interesting. Sure. I'd love to. It's been a while since I've had some fun. The nobles erupted into whispers, the tension in the room palpable. Did you hear that? They're going to prove their levels. This is unprecedented. The strongest knight in the kingdom versus these two. Can a level 99 or 100 truly be that different from us? Isn't the gap smaller than we think? I'm not sure, but the confidence in their voices, did you see Rimuru's smirk? It's unsettling. I can't wait to see what happens next. The king raised a hand to silence the murmurs, then turned to a man with fiery red hair standing nearby. If you may, he said, gesturing toward the man. I felt a chill run down my spine. I recognized him immediately. According to the game I'd played in my past life, this man was Adolf, the strongest knight in the entire kingdom. If I remembered correctly, his level was 60, the highest among the knights. Adolf stood and unsheathed his sword, the polished blade gleaming under the grand hall's lights. His presence alone silenced the room, his aura radiating strength and command. He stepped forward slowly, each step heavy with purpose. This, the king announced, his voice booming, is Adolf, the strongest knight in our kingdom. He will test your strength. Adolf turned toward me, his sharp eyes sizing me up. For a moment, everything was still. Then, without warning, he charged at me. To an untrained eye, it would seem as though he had vanished, his movements almost teleport-like in speed. But for me, his movements were slow, far too slow. What should I do? I thought quickly. Stop his blade. Avoid it. The best move. As his sword approached my neck, I made my decision. I bowed. The blade whizzed past me harmlessly, missing its mark completely. Adolf stumbled slightly, his eyes wide in disbelief. The entire room gasped, frozen in shock. From behind me, I heard the sound of applause. Turning slightly, I saw Rimu-san clapping his hands together, an amused smile on his face. Impressive, Yuma-chan. You've impressed me yet again. The king leaned forward, his expression unreadable. Adolf, what do you think? Adolf straightened himself, his face a mixture of awe and humility. Your Majesty, I can confirm it without a doubt, Miss Yumalia's level is truly 99. My attack cannot be avoided by anyone lower. She waited until the very last moment, and then she evaded it flawlessly. The queen giggled softly, placing a hand to her lips. How impressive. Truly a display of extraordinary skill. The king nodded in agreement, his tone serious yet approving. Indeed, it is beyond impressive. She is exactly as described. The nobles, however, were far less composed, their reactions ranging from awe to disbelief. She dodged Adolf's attack like it was nothing. I didn't even see her move. One moment, the blade was at her neck, and the next, she was gone. How is that possible? Adolf is level 60. He's a monster in his own right. Is this the true difference between a level 60 and a level 99? It's frightening. She didn't even draw a weapon. But Rimuru, did you see his expression? He didn't look surprised at all. It's as if he knew this would happen. Of course he knew. He's level 100. To him, this was probably child's play. This changes everything. The Tempest family, they aren't just nobles. They're untouchable. I'm starting to think they might even rival the royal family in power. I glanced at Rimu-san, who seemed completely unfazed by the uproar around us. His calm demeanor only made the situation feel even more surreal. Rimu-san, I whispered, leaning slightly toward him, are you sure this is okay? He glanced at me, his golden eyes sparkling with mischief. Of course, Yuma-chan. Let them see. It's good for people to understand what they're dealing with. His words sent a shiver through me, not out of fear, but awe. This was the Rimuru Tempest I knew. Confident, commanding, and completely unpredictable. The atmosphere in the hall had shifted entirely. Where there had been skepticism, there was now reverence. I could feel their eyes on me, their whispers carrying a mix of fear, respect, and curiosity. For better or worse, neither Rimu-san nor I would leave this hall the same as we had entered. The queen clapped her hands gently, a warm smile gracing her lips. Now, let us all calm down, she said, her voice soothing yet commanding. We've all witnessed this young lady's power, and Sir Adolf himself has confirmed it. She is indeed level 99. Her eyes then drifted toward Rimu-san, glinting with intrigue. But what about Sir Rimuru? Surely, we must see the strength of someone at level 100. The king nodded in agreement and turned to Rimu-san, his expression curious but cautious. Sir Rimuru, would you mind? Rimu-san smirked, his golden eyes gleaming mischievously. All right, he said, his tone casual. But do me a favor, try to at least scratch me. A ripple of murmurs spread through the nobles. The queen giggled softly, hiding her amusement behind her hand. Such confidence, she said, clearly entertained. That alone is impressive. Rimu-san gave a slight bow, his teasing tone impossible to miss. Thank you, my lady. Before the king could formally issue the command, Adolf charged at Rimu-san without hesitation, his eyes filled with determination. It was as if he thought a surprise attack might give him an advantage. I stiffened at the sudden movement, but Rimu-san remained completely unbothered. He stood there, looking utterly relaxed, as if on the verge of falling asleep. Adolf's sword cut through the air with precision and speed, aiming directly at Rimu-san's neck. For a moment, I thought it might actually land. The sound that followed was not the clash of steel meeting flesh, but something far stranger, a sharp crack, like metal shattering under immense pressure. Everyone froze, their gazes locked on the scene before them. Adolf staggered backward, his face a mix of disbelief and horror. His sword had broken into pieces, the fragments scattering across the marble floor. And Rimu-san. He was still standing there, perfectly unharmed, as if nothing had happened. Not a single hair on his head was out of place. The room was deathly silent, the weight of what just happened sinking into everyone present. Even I found myself staring in shock. I'd known Rimu-san was strong. Unbelievably so, but this. He hadn't even flinched. Adolf's hands trembled as he looked at the broken remnants of his weapon. Why you didn't feel that? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Rimu-san tilted his head slightly, looking genuinely confused. Feel what? His eyes drifted to the shattered sword on the ground. Oh, sorry about that, he said, scratching the back of his head sheepishly. I guess I broke your sword. The king's laughter broke the silence, a booming sound that echoed throughout the hall. Magnificent, he exclaimed, clapping his hands. Absolutely magnificent. You didn't even realize you were being attacked. If there were any doubts before, they are gone now. You are undoubtedly level 100, Sir Rimuru. Adolf lowered his head, his pride visibly shaken but his respect clear. Your Majesty, I apologize for failing to test him properly. I acted out of instinct and disobeyed protocol. Please forgive me. He turned to Rimu-san, bowing deeply. I apologize to you as well, Sir Rimuru. It seems I was utterly outmatched. Rimu-san waved him off, his smile as carefree as ever. No harm done. Well, except to your sword. It was a good weapon. Sorry about that. Adolf nodded and silently returned to his seat, his head lowered in what could only be described as a mix of humility and awe. The nobles, however, were far less composed. What just happened? Did he really not feel the attack? His skin? It's like steel. No, even stronger. Is this the true power of a level 100? Adolf's sword broke like glass. That weapon has been reforged by the best blacksmiths in the kingdom. Rimuru Tempest, he didn't even move. How is that possible? This is beyond strength. This is monstrous. Monstrous. It's divine. He's untouchable. A god among men. First the girl avoids an attack at the last possible second, and now this. The Tempest family isn't just powerful, they're unstoppable. They could overthrow the royal family if they wanted to. Careful what you say. They may be hearing us. No, look at him. Rimuru Tempest doesn't care what we think. Why would he? We're nothing compared to that. The queen, ever composed, clapped her hands lightly to regain the room's attention. Now, let us not be carried away, she said, though her voice carried a note of awe she couldn't fully mask. What we have witnessed today is remarkable, yes, but let us not forget the purpose of this demonstration. These two are here to represent not only their strength but also their character. And I must say, her eyes flickered toward Rimu-san, I am very impressed. The king nodded firmly, his expression a mix of pride and disbelief. As am I. Sir Rimuru, Miss Yumilia, you have proven yourselves not only as powerful individuals but as examples of what true strength looks like. I glanced at Rimu-san, who met my gaze with a knowing smile. His casual confidence hadn't wavered for even a moment, and now the room was entirely in his grasp. I couldn't help but think. This is the power of Rimuru Tempest, not just his strength, but his presence. No one here will ever forget what they've seen today.